Jacob, we thank you for you are so good and you are so kind. I want to exalt you. I want to uplift you for choosing us from among the nations, for giving us your Torah, giving us your heart, giving us hope in this world, giving us the opportunity to make a difference in your kingdom. I want to thank you, O our King, because you do hear the prayers of your people. Truly, you have extended equity to all nations. Truly, you have accepted people from different places, different nations, different races, so that all we can come as one, so that all we can declare your greatness, so that all we can declare your oneness, so that all we can declare your kingship, so that all we can declare your honor amongst the nations, amongst the cosmos, because you deserve all glory, all honor, exaltation, adoration, my King. And I want to thank you for Yeshua, our Messiah, whom you sent. For the life of me, O my King, I do not understand why we have found so much favor in your eyes. I do not get it. I just don't get it. Why you will love such a rebellious people. Why are you so loyal to us? And I want to thank you for your faithfulness. I want to thank you that above all you keep your word and your promises and your oath. That you are God of honor. That you got Elohim of integrity. That you're Elohim of righteousness. And I pray that little by little we will learn to honor you the way you deserve to be honored, the way you deserve to be exalted, the way you deserve to be served. So that the nation will bow down their knees and say, Adonai hu Elohim. Adonai hu Elohim. Can't wait for the nations to recognize and realize that there's no other God but the God of Israel. Amen. And that Yeshua will be so pleased to present his bride to you. To present his work of righteousness. And that you have accepted us because Yeshua took our shame to be honorable people in your kingdom. Amen. Let's continue our theme of righteousness and justice. Honor and shame. I enjoy the music. It was all about what I'm teaching this weekend. Hallelujah. Amazing. All right. Praise the Lord. All right. So let's go into, I had another teaching that I'm trying to get to. Give me a second. I have so many of them here. I teach it different all the time. So, okay, here we go. So this is a whole sequence of honor and shame. The next teaching that I'll do after this is going to be called social justice, the Torah, and equity. And then we will be able to understand why the gospel spread so fast through the ancient world using the caste system. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever studied the caste systems of India? Or the caste system in England? Yes. The caste system in Rome? In the first century, have you ever studied that? If we do study it, it'll make more sense as to why Paul says there's neither Jew or Gentile, nor slave, nor freedman, for we are all one in Messiah. Then we're going to study that out. But not from a religious theological perspective, but from a cultural anthropological perspective. Putting the words of Yeshua, putting the words of Paul in its proper contextual background so that we'll be able to greater magnify the work of the Messiah and then understand why the gospel was so significant and why it grew so fast. By the way, look, the reason why the gospel grew around the nations was because the reality is that Christianity, for a long time, they were doing the right thing, which is helping people in need. It was what commandments to keep that we can't mess it up. But in reality, how many of you, when you were in the church system, or if you're still in the church system, there are times when they talk about, let's help some people in Africa, and you give as much as you can to help the people in need. But what happens to the people in your congregation? How about in your country? Why don't we equip and help those within us, and then within us we go to the community we go to the nation, and the nation goes someplace else. Because you cannot oppress your own to facilitate to others. You can't do that. And that's what the believers did in the first century. Now imagine you live in an oppressive country, in an oppressive system based on honor and shame and a caste system. And you happen to be born in the lowest caste. How many of you have been to India? Anybody been to India? Did you encounter the Dalit? Yes. How do they live? They're called the untouchables. Only the Brahmins have all the greatest and the most opportunities Now imagine if you go to India and you teach the gospel, trying to let them know that in the kingdom of Elohim there's no caste system, that there's equity amongst everyone. Think about that. I mean, their God doesn't give them equity. I mean, they serve a God, and the Dalit serve a God that is basically oppressing them and keeps them in that state. That's the Elohim that I serve. He gives us equity. He gives us honor. So, let's see how that works. The mechanism of honor and shame in the first century. In order for us to understand this, we have to study anthropology. So, there are certain people that have really dominated that field. Jerome Neary, David De Silva, Molina, and other scholars that have really looked into honor and shame in the Mediterranean first, honor and shame in the first century. And now, all through Scripture, when we go back and we understand that, we can see it all over the Bible, from Genesis all the way to the book of Revelation. We see the word shame. Look it up. In Judaism, it's very prevalent. Kavod vevusha. Kavod vevusha. Remember, say it with me. Kavod vevusha. I mean, honor is such a big thing in the Torah that even when you come up to the aliyot to read from the scroll, and it says, Yamod ben someone, the son of somebody, and it's always the person, son of this person, everybody goes, Kavod, honor! Oh man, I get to be chosen to speak from the Torah, the perfect words of the king, using this mortal body to minister to the people. That's an honor. So why don't we implement that in our services? Oh, it's getting hot now. You see, the reason why we do not honor those things is because of lack of information and information from a balanced perspective. Sometimes you go to some of the services and you see all the rituals and the liturgy and you think, oh, that's just rituals. A lot of it came from the temple service. But granted, in some circles it's become a tradition and they love it more than righteousness and justice. Well, so it's true on the other side. You understand? But what if I explain to you certain principles of why they do what they do that's taken from the temple? Like when they do the Torah procession. People say specifically, our Christian brothers who've never seen it, it's shocking. Oh look, they're kissing the scroll. They're worshiping the scroll. And there's a friend of mine who told me one time, he goes, Rico, it's like, you know, what will you do if Messiah comes in the midst? What will you do if Messiah walking through the door right now? Surely you're not going to approach my king when he comes in the clouds of heaven and say, oh, Jesus, give me a hug. Mwah. I don't think so. You don't approach him that way, because if the Queen of England will come through here right now, there's a whole protocol that you must follow. Did you know that protocol? Because you were taught. Then how come we don't learn the protocol of our king? How to approach him. How to honor him. So the synagogue service is a way to teach you how to honor the King of the universe. So when the Torah is open, everybody stands. The King is about to speak to you. When they do the procession of the Torah, you never turn your back to it. Why? You're learning how to behave in the millennial reign. If Messiah is in the midst of Israel, are you going to turn your back to him? That's disrespectful. So again, separating what it is honorable versus what it is a tradition. So let's get into the honor and shame. Everything good? Give it up for Michael, man. This guy's done way above and beyond everything we need. Come on now. We got to give honor. And his wife, is she here? Is she feeling okay?
Hopefully this afternoon.
Okay, good. It's not easy. Listen, it's not easy for him and his family to give up all their time. Where's Daniel? Is he here?
Yeah, he's
Oh, okay, with the kids. You know, to host people they never met before and, you know, be so nice and gracious. And I pray that I was a good, you know, a good guest. I did what I was told, and when I try to do more than I'm supposed to, I got in trouble. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so thank you, Michael, for all the hard work you do. And I know he doesn't really care for me, but I want to give him honor because it's not easy to do all this stuff. It's difficult to set up stuff. Please encourage him. Help him. You know, support it. You know, not only by showing up when everything's nice and done. You know, support it. We want to come here. We want to help. We're willing to come. We just need you to at least show up and take advantage of the opportunities, you know, so that we can be blessed and bless others. Amen? You feel blessed so far? Michael, what time do I stop?
Close to 2. Or you can go.
That's fine. That's fine. Just rush me. It's okay. Okay, the Torah is a path of honor and service to our King. Honor and shame. Let's define this. I want to thank Ryan White and I want to thank Daniel McGurr. Those are the team that I have on Wisdom and Torah Ministries. There's no way I would have been able to do all this stuff without their help. We study things together. We have a team of researchers, a peer review that we get together and we study. We read the same books, the articles, and things that I missed. They keep me accountable, and we do the same thing. And they actually help me with all this information, making sure that it's right, that it's correct. I think that some things that I do are a little bit different, but we all teach on this. And the PowerPoint, we all done it together. But I want to give credit to Daniel McGurr for helping with this PowerPoint and putting a lot of and Ryan White. Give credit to what credit is due. Just to let you know that I'm working with other people and I have teachers. My students are my teachers and vice versa. We work together. That's the whole idea. So let's talk about the 4 elements of honor and shame culture. Repeat after me. Ascribed honor. Acquired honor. Challenge and riposte. Maintaining of honor by means of an oath. Now, did we cover the last one pretty good? I think we already understand that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give you some definitions of every single one of the 4, and then we're going to give you some biblical examples of them. It's going to be more of a foundation of the principle, so when we get into the next teaching, it's going to make more sense. I want to follow a series. So now when you read the New Testament or the first century writings, you're not looking at it from a theological perspective. You're looking at it from a legal or from a considering the culture, the honor, shame, imperial cult, all that stuff, that goes on in the first century that we never really get to study, And by the way, you know what? If you don't have time to study that, it's okay. The Father has called some of the teachers to set aside times to do that for you. Okay? We recognize that not everybody's going to be able to spend 6-7 hours a day. I love doing it. I have the time to do it. That's my job. I'm willing to do it. All I need you to do for me is help me pray that the Father will continue to give me health and the wisdom and the understanding and the discernment to dedicate the time and never disregard my family. Do what I need to do without disregarding my family, because my family is my ministry, not you. So when it's becoming too demanding that I have to leave my family, I'm sorry. I'll leave you guys hanging for a while. I got to honor my wife. That's important. Keep that in prayer that I keep that balance. Because we're men, we're very focus driven. Yes? All right, so that's how you can do. And ascribe honor. Okay, ascribed honor is a social claim to status of a person attributed to him by birth or genealogy. Normally, such honor is already received at birth and derives mostly from lineage. Since kingship was the most important institution in antiquity, birth into a noble family immediately meant ascribed worth in the eyes of the family's peers. The family itself will make claims to worth on behalf of its offspring. These being the most commonly expressed when a marriage was being arranged. That's why arranged marriages were important. Because now you have a father who's protecting the honor of the family, and he has a beautiful daughter. So now he wants to make sure that she is married into an honorable family. Because if she is married on a shameful family, that'll bring shame to his family and the children after him. You follow? So therefore, the duty of the husband or the father was to protect her so that she will get a dowry, because the more dowry she will get, the more honor is perceived on her. She doesn't necessarily have to be beautiful to get a lot of money. There are other virtues that a woman can have that makes her valuable. My wife is gorgeous, but her heart is even more beautiful than her outside. I'm telling you, she's pretty. I'm way above. I look at her and go, wow, you must really love me, Lord. And I go like, wow. But her heart, man, is incredible. So, right, you show a picture later. So what happens is that we have, who has in Israel, who has ascribed honor? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Just bear with me. Okay, it says, within that family, siblings have different degrees of ascribed honor. That's why the firstborn had a greater honor than the rest of the kids. Why? Because he was better looking? No. It's the fact that he's the firstborn. He was the strength of the father that came out of the womb. So thus, he receives a double blessing. Not because he's better than the rest of them, but because he has been taught, equipped to continue the lineage and the legacy and the honor of the father. So thus, you take care of the family and protect the honor of a father given unto you. That's why Reuben was really upset. But you see, Jacob understood the character of Reuben. It was clearly demonstrated by the way he responded after the father gave it to Joseph. So that means that Jacob was correct in giving it to Joseph. Later on, 20 years later, we recognize that Jacob made the right choice when Joseph now is the leader of Egypt. You follow? And by the way, what was Joseph famous for? I mean, the Bible doesn't talk about all the great laws that he established and everything like that. It talks about that he managed the money correctly and that he was known for his acts of righteousness. He took care of the less fortunate. People hungry, right? All of Egypt was known as a great nation because there was a righteous leader who took care of the needs of the kingdom. All right? So now, guarding the parents' honor, Deuteronomy 21, verse 18-21 is an example of that. Now, therefore, it is quite understandable why the ancients refer to themselves always as the son of. There are no last names. Why? Because you are the son of this man. Now, the sons of Eli, if you read the Bible, are they honorable people? Even their names bear that. Because they used to take the best of the sacrifices, even have sex with the women next to the tabernacle. Really? It was crazy. They abused the ascribed honor they received because they were sons of Eli, who was the son of Aaron. So now Aaron received honor. He received acquired honor. But the sons of Aaron receive ascribed honor forever. Because who gave them the gift of the priesthood? Right? And he anointed them, and he put blood on the ear, on the thumb, and on their big toe. And then he dedicated sacrifices. They sprinkle, they put blood on them. Thus, they're separated as holy to him, to the Lord. So why are people saying that the Levitical priest is done away with? When God says, I will make a covenant of peace forever. And the Lord says, and they are holy unto me. They are set aside for my service. I am their inheritance. Right now people say, no, we are all priests now. They're no longer relevant. You mean that God changed his mind? I mean, I got people saying right now that the tabernacle is round. That's a new teaching. The tabernacle is no longer the way the Bible says it. Now it's round. Really? I mean, the Jewish people have been reading that text forever. Now it's round. Remember, the tabernacle is a holy dwelling place of the Lord. Pick your fights. He is not to be mocked. When it comes to the kingship, the priesthood, the land, and the tabernacle and the temple, that's his dwelling place. That's his house. Leave those things that are out of your jurisdiction. Please. You know what I mean? I mean, we go and just keep going, keep crazy stuff. Look, I will look at every information, and I'm very open to listen to everybody. But I mean, I don't know anybody more zealous than the Jewish people about all the scriptures. Very zealous, and they kept an order for so long. Anybody who's been in Israel knows that. Do I agree with everything they do? No. But do you agree with everything Christians do? I mean, don't you think that after all the years, they will probably know that the tabernacle is round? Is that a conspiracy? Let's keep it away from all the Gentiles. We don't want them to know how the tabernacle was. Now we have to change it. Did you know that this is honorable to God? Because he anointed those things. He made it aside. He set it aside. It is holy. You don't touch. That is called encroachment. That is sinful in the Bible. Didn't we learn from Korah? Korah wanted the job of Moses and Aaron. He died. It's encroachment. It wasn't good enough. He get to carry the holy things. He wanted the job of all the people that God anointed to do. I get a little zealous about this stuff. Because it's starting to really bug me. To the point that now we just came yesterday to this movement. Now we change everything around. Ladies and gentlemen, I beg of you. Please, take your time. Take your time, and if you have an opinion about something, study it, make sure. Because some things are out of our jurisdiction. Some things we don't have any right to say anything on. We just got to wait until the Messiah returns and make everything clarity. Because the last thing we want to do is to change something that the Father says to do. Did Yeshua change anything in the temple? No. He only talked against the injustice and the unrighteousness and the corruption, right? I mean, you would have thought that Yeshua says, hey guys, the tabernacle is round. I got to get out of that because I'm a little bit, it's just, and I'm not judging anybody. I know we're searching, we're looking. And if I'm wrong, guys, I'll change it. It's not a problem. If I'm wrong, I'm willing to change whatever and make it better. But we have to be careful. Certain things are very holy. And when we get into the holy things, we get in trouble. And I don't mean to mock anybody. I'm just saying be careful. Take extra time before we throw it out there, hope for sticks. Some things are just concrete. There are things in the Torah you don't add and you don't change from. It's a treaty, So now we have ascribed honor. So the kings have ascribed honor and the priests have ascribed honor. And Israel have ascribed honor because they come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Anybody offended yet? Give me time. I'm here all day. Eventually I'll offend somebody. Anyway, next. Acquired honor. Acquired honor is the status built up by persons over their lifespan. A military victory or social interaction involving challenge and riposte. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Or benefaction are normal fields where honor can be gained. Military victories and benefaction were open only to elites. Non-elites, who made up the 90% of the ancient population, could normally achieve prestige only through agonistic behavior. It's a push and shove. By the way, what happens when the politicians are running for office? What do? They are debates, right? Yes. If you follow an American's debates, I'm sorry. I apologize already. I've never seen the level of mud throwing as I've seen in my life. It's shameful. I mean, I was looking at one of them. I just went back and I went to study. I told my wife, I don't want to watch that. That's shameful.
Australia is the same.
It's everywhere it's the same. So what do? It's a challenge and riposte. It's a challenge and riposte. I'm going to challenge your honor about what you believe, what you think, all the stuff in your past, to shame you so that they don't vote for you. I want your vote. Now I'm going to present myself at a higher status with more honor than you. And who determines the winner? When he wins the vote and you win the office. Now everybody says this guy has more honor than that one. What happens to that person when they don't win? Are they dishonorable now? Oh no, we're buddies. We're great friends. Really? Is that how you treat your friends? I want nothing to do with you. Because then when we're competing for something, now you're going to throw me under the bus? By the way, you know that we're doing that in the Hebrew Roots movement too? We're all doing that. It's the same thing. We're learning from society. All right? So, what was that? Anyone in a village or neighborhood who claims special respect based on achievement was likely to be challenged by others because of the pervasive perception of limited goods. Remember what I told you about limited goods? That it's only limited to certain people? So, if you are born into a class of elites, or let's say that you come from a lower class and that you gain honor, then somebody in your class is going to honor you. It's going to challenge you because they want that honor. This is what happens in society all the time when you have somebody with low resources and now their talent take them to a higher level of wealth and status. What happens? Their own community sometimes mock them and belittles them and don't welcome them back because they want them to stay in their community. You will think that your community will be proud of you and would like, wow, thank you for putting. You see this all the time. When someone famous comes from a little town and they become a great name and they're really popular, they name streets after him, stadiums after him, and that person donates and he becomes like a patron to that city, a benefactor. Says, well, he donated part of the university, or he donated for a sports thing, or he donated, so we're going to honor him by naming a street after him, or a stadium after him. Now people will know, who is that guy? Oh, he's one of the great ones in this country, or one of the great ones in the community. And it's a source of pride when they put the name of the community, the family, and the country on a high level, right? But what happens when that person shames them? They remove the name from the streets, they don't want to talk about it no more, right? Okay, so that's acquired honor. So where are the Gentiles in all this? Okay, so the Jews and Israel, what do they have? Acquired or ascribed honor? Ascribed honor. Ascribed honor. And you have to get over that. No matter what we do, what we say, they have ascribed honor. That's why Paul says to the Jew first and then the Gentile. He's not making an exception of people. He understood that the Jewish people had the ascribed honor because they're descendants of the covenant. He's not minimizing the Gentile. It's just the order of the way that it was and that it's supposed to be. You honor those people who are in the covenant. That's why he went to the Jewish synagogues first. When they rejected the message, then he went to the Gentiles. Not to minimize the Gentile. It's just to not provoke them to jealousy. Because now those people are going to receive a quiet honor. And God is going to say, you're not the only people in the covenant. Remember Ruth? I mean, there's a big argument in Judaism right now that some rabbis are actually becoming aware of this. That they tell you, well, you're Jewish if your mother is Jewish. Oh, yeah, whatever. I respect where they're at. But then I always ask the question. Well, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Bilhah, Silpah, the mother of Ephraim and Manasseh, Ruth, pagan women. And you talk to any Orthodox and they tell you, oh, they were Jewish. But that's not what the text says. There are some rabbis who are waking up to them. They'll tell you, well, there's a problem with that. So they're honest. But then I understand why they say, well, they're part of the religion. I understand the whole argument. I'm not arguing with them on that. It's just that it's interesting. They say, well, we don't want except Ephraim, and we don't want the lost tribes of Israel. But yet they pray for us 3 times a day. Kibbutz Galiot. The regathering of the exiles. And then at the same token, they say, well, wait a minute. But if you're Ephraim, we don't really acknowledge you. But they do the blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh every Friday night. And I'm going like, wait a minute. May the Lord bless you like Ephraim and Manasseh.
Like what?
Well, hello. They were adopted by Jacob. That's the only way they could have gotten the inheritance. Because it belonged to Joseph. So how come he didn't give it to Joseph? He had to adopt Ephraim and Manasseh. Because Joseph was adopted by Pharaoh. That's the only way he could become the second in command. So he gave it to the descendants of Joseph so that he can continue the lineage. You follow? It doesn't mean that Joseph was not part of the kingdom. That's why Joseph says, do not leave me buried here. Take me back. Take my bones. Because I belong over there. And Pharaoh died. When Pharaoh dies, I'm no longer his son. I want to go back to Israel. I'm going to go back to my inheritance. Is this making sense? Yes. Amen. So sometimes I go on a tangent. Please bear with me. It's just I'm dealing with a whole bunch of emotions. I am so happy to be here. I cannot believe that, I have the opportunity to come here. And I understand the severity of being accountable to what I'm going to say all weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, I read those prophecies my whole life. And when I started studying Torah, I remember reading Deuteronomy 30. That he will circumcise your heart, and he will heal you from all the places that he has scattered you. And he will send then the prophets. I will send people to the farthest places of the earth. And to think that I get on a plane, and I'm one of those people he's sending, that is way beyond my expectation. I better do it real well. And I'm not trying to impress you in anything that I say. I could care less if you like me, really. Thank you for being here. But if we can leave this weekend and have a greater appreciation for the honor of our King, I'll be happy. That's all I care about. To think that you read all those prophecies. And I know some people here feel the same way. That you read all those things. We've been teaching Torah our whole life. For the last 18 years for me. But I'm teaching the Torah or studying the Torah, and I see all those prophecies, and then they're using you. Not just anybody, they're just giving you the opportunity to be part of that, to talk about honor and shame, and to talk about the honor of Messiah, and to talk about the honor of the Torah, the honor of the Jewish people. No matter what, whether we like them across the street or not is irrelevant. They are the kingdom of God, whether we like it or not. They are the people. If you shame them, you're shaming the one who says to Abraham, I will give you a seed forever. So here we are shaming one another. Well, guess what? They have ascribed honor. We have acquired honor. We both belong. Why? We've been adopted. So right now I have no rights to be in your country unless I'm invited. By permission, I'm here. Right? Invitation. I come in, I obey your laws, and I say, man, I really like Australia. Been to South Africa. It's beautiful too. Okay? And I want to be part of Australian people. Well, either through immigration. That's the only way. But even, by the way, in the immigration process, if you want to get your family to come from El Salvador or any other place, you have to submit an application So somebody has to be your sponsor or your patron and your benefactor. That person has to put in, he has to have credibility, and he has to be stable, and now he puts his name on the line to give you access to that person who's far away. Right? So how will you feel if you go through all the process to get these people to be part of your country and receive acquired honor that they didn't deserve to have, and then they come into the country and they make you look bad by doing things against the law and by shaming you? How will that look? So now we get a whole bunch of people coming into this country that we gave them acquired honor, citizenship, just because they needed righteousness and equity and justice. And now they'll come in, and instead of paying you with things and doing whatever it took to be grateful to you because you became a great benefactor when they were being oppressed by their own people, now they'll turn on you, tell you what to do, they'll oppress you, and they'll kill you if you don't accept them. But wait a second. Do you know that in a different level we're doing the same thing with our own brothers and sisters? We become adopted into the kingdom that does not belong to us. And when we look at the Jewish brother, we shame them, we criticize them, and we belittle them because they don't necessarily see things the way we do. But we just came in yesterday through Yeshua the Messiah, who became our benefactor. Instead of just, again, the prodigal son, just looking to be thankful and grateful to the master for the honor. It's all about honor and shame. So you see, both sides have the problem. We have it. It's not easy. It's hard to. Okay, equity is difficult to extend. That's why we need his equity and his righteousness. Because we're not made like that. We are selfish people. All of us are. I don't care who you are. You care about people, but you are always selfish. I'm selfish. We are all selfish. And the Torah is teaching us not to be, because it's saying, Abraham, no need to worry about it. Can you turn maybe that one that way? Just a bit. The speaker. Just turn the speaker that way. Point in the other direction. There, perfect. So I can move here better. Okay, so it says, Abraham, would you open your hand? Somebody has a need, you take it out, you open your hand. The Torah talks about this. So let them take what they need. But what if they take advantage of you and take everything you have? He's teaching you not only to measure the dignity of that person and the integrity of them, and also if he takes more than everything when you extended your righteousness and justice, but the one who gave you will give you double because he recognized he took advantage of you. You just found out about him, and he found out about you. You see what I mean? He says, I will provide for you, extend your righteousness, and let's see what he does. Right? And then if you take more than you needed, who did you really dishonor? The one who opened the way for you. That's why the commandments are written the way they are. It's about honoring one another. 4 commandments between you and him, 6 commandments between you and your neighbor. That's why they're written that way. So if you know who he is, his name, not to worship any other gods, not to take his name in vain, right? And keep his Sabbath, then you're not going to sleep with the other person's wife, you're not going to murder him, you're not going to slander him, you're not going to... Why? Because you're all in covenant. So if I belittle you, if I shame you, and you are covenant with the God of Israel, I'm shaming him. Because you received acquired honor. Like, for example, this is amazing. You know, in America, you can fight against the enemy. And I've seen this. You fight against the enemy. But if a descendant of that enemy becomes a U.S. citizen, the soldier who fought against that enemy will defend the descendant because he's a U.S. citizen. He'll tell you, I don't care what religion they are U.S. citizens. You're not to mistreat them. That's still the integrity of some Americans. They say, no. They're doing that over there, but this is a descendant. He's a U.S. citizen, he needs to be respected. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are all part of the Commonwealth of Israel. That's what Ephesians tells us. We have the honor to be grafted in by grace through faith. We have acquired honor now through Yeshua, Messiah. We have been sprinkled with his blood to show that we are part of the covenant. We are now part of the kingdom. So now what are we going to do? Continue the shaming process? By making an exception of people when Yeshua never made it with us? When Paul never did it with us? Okay, is this making sense? Give me an hallelujah or something. Okay, the higher I get, the more feedback I need. Okay, so I'm depending on my Spanish brothers to do it. Because they tell me that Australians are really subdued and calm. Can we change that today? That's not a bad thing anyway.
Praise you, brother.
Amen. Okay, so is this making sense so far? Ascribed honor, right? All right, so here we go. Building up a name or reputation enhances one acquired honor by means of his deeds. So how do we gain honor in the eyes of the king? When we act according to his righteousness. How do we gain honor? How do I gain honor? I have a testimony, I have a past. How is it possible that I could address all of you and that you will even drive hours to get here when you never met me before? You don't know me as a person. You know me as a teacher on TV or whatever it is on the internet. You never. So hopefully, maybe when I interact with you, I can present a different side of me that you might have never knew. So I guarantee you that after I leave, you may forget what I said in the teachings, but you may remember something that I did as a person, because that's really who we are. The person is what makes it. So imagine if we treat you with equity and righteousness and we treat you dignified as the people that you are, right? Then you get a complete... How you approach people is how they see you. So if we approach them with shaming process and with injustice and unrighteousness, what are we doing? Well, I'm supposed to be a servant of the king? By the way, every time someone does something that will shame the gospel, they don't say, well, he's a shameful person. They always say, oh, that's one of those Christians or one of those Hebrew roots people. They're one of the servants of the God of Israel. You know who received the shame? Our king. Yes. They don't say he made a mistake. Right? So that's why we have to be careful. Listen, people argue about tzitzit now. Be surprised how many people, everywhere I go, ask me questions about tzitzit. Should be on the belt loops, should be multicolor, should we do this? Why do they do 5 knots? That's rabbinical. Why do they do that? I use the talit katam because I go to Israel and actually it's 4-corner garment. You know, I choose to do this. I want to tzitzit. What else you want from me? You know what I mean? But why do you wear the talit katam? That's rabbinical. Well, why do you wear the belt loops? There were no belt loops back in the time when it was given. You get it? We can argue all we want, but do we understand the function? How about the function? Tell me the function of it. Why did the Lord give the tzitzit? For? But yeah, but a little bit more. To remember the commandments, right? But that's not what we're doing it for. We argue even about how many knots comes with it. I mean, we don't remember the commandment when we talk about tzitzit. It's always an argument. Oh, but how come you wore the traditional one? Is it the Rambam or the Rashi? Oh, how come you have it here? I mean, what is the function? Do I argue with people whether they have the belt loose anymore? I could care less. Just put them on. But let me share with you what it means. Is that okay? The function of it. In my research of the ancient Near East, I've learned that the tzitzit, the tassels, was not unique to Israel. The Assyrians had them, the Egyptians had them, the Mesopotamian had them, and the Hittites, they had them. When you go to the Jerusalem Museum, verify this for me because you know about this. You see the relief of the archangel from the Assyrian, the big relief on the Jerusalem Museum. If you look closely, it has tassels. Because tassels in the ancient world represented high status and royalty. Only the elite can wear them. People who have money. So that's why we have the blue. Chelet. Now people argue about that too. Is it the blue of this? Is it the blue of that? I mean, in Israel, there's a big argument about it. But you know what the blue is so significant? It was expensive. It represented status, royalty. So now Israel commits a sin in the wilderness. They're still acting like slaves. Still behaving in a slave mentality. They don't get out of the mindset of all those years as slaves in Egypt. So they make a mistake. So the Lord now uses the tassels, which they knew. You don't hear an argument in the Bible, the Israelites saying, well, why do we need to wear that? Right? Listen, you put 3 or 4 Hebrew people together, you have a really interesting conversation. Every time Moses says something that God said to do and there's no argument, it's because they understood what it meant. It just made logical sense to them. Oh, we get it. Okay, we'll do that. There was no argument. I don't want to wear them on my 4 corners. Why do I have to do that? Do women wear them? And there's Moses arguing with everybody whether they should or not. Look, that's not. What's the function? So now they make a mistake and says, hey, so you remember the commandment. Perfect. But what was the other function? Remember in Exodus 19 where it says, I'll make you a holy nation? Yep. A kingdom of priests? Ladies and gentlemen, in the ancient world, only the kings, the prince, and the elite and the priests can wear the tassels with a very, very colorful thing because it was expensive. God is saying, guys, remember the commandment, but also remember who you are. You're no longer slaves. When they see every Israelite walking around with the tassels, they're saying, there goes the kingdom of royalty. They're not slaves anymore. And it's the commandment that give you the status. You keep the commandment, you keep the righteousness, then you walk in honor. Now you're representing your king. And your king says you are royalty. You're no longer slaves. Isn't that what Paul said? But no, we argue about what we don't care about really what it means. So do I make a big issue if you have 20,000 colors on it? Just have the blue. I don't care. I'm not going to argue about that. If you put on the belt loops. Listen, when I started, I put it on the belt loops. The more I kept learning, I said, I'm ready to wear the talit katan. So what? Just put them on. I'm not going to argue with you. Do you know what it means? If you don't know what it means and you argue about whether it's blue or whatever, now we're losing essence of what really God is trying to tell us. Is this making sense? Again, I knew that question was coming. Remember the function. All right, so next. All right, so now we have challenge and riposte. Are you enjoying yourself? Yes. Challenge and riposte is essentially an attempt to gain honor at someone else's expense by publicly posing a challenge that cannot be answered. When a challenge has been posed, the challenge must make some sort of response. The challenge must make some sort of response, and no response is also considered a response. It falls by the bystander to decide whether or not the challenged person successfully defended his, indeed, usually his own honor. David De Silva. If you can get this book, please get it. It's a really good book. Hey, can I be transparent with you right now? Yeah. About 6 years ago, I was going through a very interesting period in my life, and somebody asked me a question. This is the direction that I was headed. And I got to the point that, I'm reading all the rabbis, I'm studying a lot of Judaism, I knew a little bit about Talmud, a little bit about Mishnah, Gemara, and all that stuff, and I'm thinking, oh man, I know something. And somebody asked me a question, says, so Rico, what scholars do you study, Christian scholars that might give something to offer? And this is what I said. What do I need to learn from them? I said that. Wow, I should have never said that. The arrogance. The last 5 years, I've been learning about anthropology, archaeology, ancient Near Eastern treaties, all that stuff, from Christian scholars who went and dig everything down, and they didn't care about the theology, they just put down what they found. Talk about humble pie. So I've learned to eat the meat, throw away the bones. There's some books that I'm reading. I don't necessarily agree with the theology of the person, but the book is really amazing and the information that I need to know. My job is to be discerning and to understand what is and what is not. To make the dots. You see what I mean? Yes. Let us be careful to think that we arrived. It doesn't work. And when He humbles you, He humbles you. And that's why I've taken upon myself now to do my best not to let that happen again. Because it's not good. When you get to that point, you think it's all about you, and then you recognize that, wow, there's a lot more, and every week I'm learning something new. So I know that I don't know. That the more I know, the less I know. And I like it that way. And that's why I tell you, verify what I say, don't believe what I say. If I'm wrong, I'll change it. I have no problem saying you can back it up. I'll research it. You know what? I pulled a few teachings that I already had. A whole bunch of that still out there. But, I didn't know. 10 years ago, I'm working with what I knew. Some things that I was teaching that was wrong. But I'll tell you, listen, this teaching, I said things there that was wrong. Don't buy it. Don't. I pulled it out. You got to be honest. What's the problem if we're wrong? So what if we're wrong? It's a big deal. I mean, who's really right all the time? He is, right?
Amen.
So what is the problem if I think I'm writing something today and then later on says, guys, 3 years ago I was teaching this and I've done more research. I did not have the whole picture. And what's better though? To say that or to say, guys, I'm in this direction, I'm going in this way, this is where I'm at today. And I keep learning, searching. And then if you hear me say something different in 2 or 3 years, it's because I'm learning and maybe I don't have that information today, right? Instead of saying, no, you must do it this way because I said so. and then you go back and verify it, or somebody just digs under the ground and finds some huge evidence that diminishes everything that I've said, and I'm too arrogant to change it. Who loses credibility? Exactly. He loses and he's ashamed because I refuse to be adaptable. So can I submit to you? Let's learn to be adaptable. And if we're wrong on something, it's okay. And just listen, pay attention, and then research, and then take a better sound decision at the end instead of going after every wind of doctrine that comes around. Everything new comes around. Oh, it makes logical sense. Let's follow it. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think just following the God of Israel is logical? Think about it. You're following a creator you've never seen. All you see is his creation. Right? You believe in a resurrection by faith because I've never seen anybody resurrected. But I believe it. You believe in the Messiah that recently you didn't even know his real name. You're finding out that the New Testament, if you don't understand the context, sometimes people think it doesn't make any sense. You're finding out that the name is not Shabbat, and Shabbat is not Sunday. You're finding out that the feast is a little different than what's been observed today. I mean, come on, really? And we still think we know everything? I mean, every day is a constant struggle to keep finding and looking and searching and continue to look. And when you find, just keep going. It's like a diamond. You find it, but it doesn't look pretty when you get it. But people get excited. I got a diamond. But it doesn't look nothing like it's pretty. You need somebody who knows a strain to shape it. Boom. That's what we go through in our walk. You know, and it hurts, right? All right, let me move on. Challenge and riposte. Okay, let's go to Luke. Give you an example of challenge and riposte. You know, a modern day way of knowing about challenge and riposte is called rapping. You know, in America they do rappers and things like that. Do you know how they got their honor? By challenging others in public and belittling them in public, and then everybody will laugh at that person and even talk about their mom and everything. And then afterwards, oh man, this guy could really insult you with a rhyme. Well, he's really good at insulting you with a beat. And whoever has the best beat, that's the guy who wins. So they're using words to insult you. And then everybody says, oh, he's a good rapper. And they don't realize he's insulting you. And you still give honor to somebody who's insulting you. But we don't. Debates is the same thing. That's why I don't like debates, especially the feast. Don't ever take the feast to debate anybody, please. I'll make that mistake. It didn't go well. And I kept telling the people. I said, I'd rather not do that. Because it's the feast about the Lord, man. Even, we can have a nice conversation. When it comes about theology, no one ever has a nice conversation. It always turns into a debate. So who's going to win? No one. And when it's supposed to be a day of rejoicing in the Lord, it turns into a who knows what and how much. Man, that doesn't win anybody anything. You know what I mean? And it's not easy. So it's Luke, I think. Luke or Mark, I can't remember. Give me a second. It's the one when Yeshua healed the woman who had the... no, that's the woman who was sick with a bend over. I got it. There we go. A perfect example of challenge and riposte. How much time I got?
Half an hour, 35.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's read that. Can I bring this thing up?
Whereabouts is it?
Verse 10. Listen to this. Of Luke chapter 13. You there?
Yep.
So read along with me. Now, he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Shabbat. And behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bent over and could in no way raise herself up. But when Yeshua saw her, he called her to him and said to her, Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity. And he laid hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified Elohim. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation. Why would he get upset? By the way, do you know that by knowing, I know from which house he was from just by knowing his response. He was the house of Shammai. The house of Shammai would not allow them to pray for the sick on Shabbat. The house of Hillel will do that. So now imagine this. You're the leader of the synagogue, and in the first century, acquiring that type of honor was something big. I mean, you worked your hard, you studied hard, and you became somebody famous, and now you're the leader of the synagogue. And now Yeshua is there, and he heals a woman. Let me tell you something. If somebody is sick here, and we pray, and they're healed, I'm not teaching. In other words, we're all going to start praising the Creator for healing that person. You follow me? And our agenda ends. Because then we'll honor Him. That's what the healings is all about. So that we can redirect our honor back to Him, not man. Now watch this. And it says, but the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because Yeshua had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, there are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore come and be healed on them, not on the Sabbath day. Listen to this. Then the master answered him and said, hypocrite, does not each of you, one of you, on the Sabbath loose his ox and his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? Now listen to what Yeshua does. Oh, amazing. So I'm not this woman being of... He just told him and says, seriously? You take your animals to take water? But this is a daughter of Abraham. Talk about a woman who's sick for 18 years. And now he restores her honor by healing her. And the leader says, no, not on Sabbath. When the Sabbath is a microcosm of the millennial reign, when everything's going to be restored. And Yeshua says, you treat the animals better than a daughter of Abraham. Don't you understand that that's ascribed honor? A daughter of Abraham. You don't belittle her. You don't mistreat her. Talk about bringing her honor and dignity. Oh, I don't think you got it, man. Oh, my Lord, I don't think you got it. Just speak Puerto Ricans for the next hour, would you? Get all excited. We shout for everything in Puerto Rico, man. We're like, here we go. So it says, thank you. Thanks for trying. I appreciate it. The Lord then answered him and said, hypocrite, don't you each one of you on the Sabbath losing his ox and donkey in the stall and lead him to water it? So are not this woman being a daughter of Abraham who Satan has bound? Think of it. For 18 years be loose from this bond on the Sabbath? Let's read the next verse together. And when he said these things, all these adversaries were put to the next part, and all the multitude rejoiced for all the glorious things that he done by him. So there we go. Challenge and riposte. The leader of the synagogue made a challenge. Why did you do that? And then he said the answer, a riposte. And who determined? The people gave Yeshua honor, and the leaders were shamed. That's right in your Bibles. How many of you never thought about it from that perspective before? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that cool? You know, it's amazing. We're learning new principles. You know? And then we can look at the overall picture. It says, if he did it for a woman who is sick for so long, and Yeshua, my Messiah, raised her honor in the midst of the leadership, wow! Don't you think he's going to be equitable and do it with you? Right? So again, I ask the question, if my Messiah, thinking of this woman, who the leaders could care less about her, because he was only protecting his honor as the ruler of the synagogue. Oh, God forbid he want to heal on the Sabbath. Now the leader is telling God what to do and when to do it. Wait a second. Aren't we doing the same thing? I'm going to bring it home. We're doing the same thing. We do the same thing, and that's what I'm trying to change in my life. It's like I cannot treat you as a second-class citizen because he never treated me that way. He never treated you like that. This leader is treating a woman, a daughter of Abraham, as less of a human being. He takes care of his animals better than her. That's what Yeshua is doing all throughout his ministry. He's eating with the poor. With the outcasts in society, he says, no, come on, I want to fellowship with you. Well, I'm trying to imitate my Messiah. I'm doing my best to give time to every person I see. I want to know your name. I want to get to know you a little bit. Is it taxing or tiring? Sometimes I get tired. But to me, even the youngest person here, I want to give them enough time. Because I'm trying to learn, trying to work at imitating my Messiah. Is it easy? No. Is it tiring? Yes. Sometimes I just need a break because I'm a human being. But my Messiah did it, so we are learning to do it. I want to make you feel like you're the most important person when you talk to me and when I talk to you, because my Messiah did it to her, so why am I any different? Doesn't he pay attention when you pray? Right? That means when you talk to him, he's there, next to the Father. My Father, my King, my servant, whom you call, is requesting. Would you mind if I hear his case? And then you say, my Father, my King, in the name of Yeshua, with the honor, with the name, with the character, with the integrity of our Messiah. Now you're approaching the Father, right? And then you're praying. In the name of Jesus, I demand and I declare right now. I declare it and you will do it. I decree it and you will follow through. I heard people pray like that. And I used to do that, by the way, when I was in the Pentecostal movement. I repent. Can you imagine Messiah? He went through all of that shame, and then he was exalted. And and then you come to him with that tone of voice that you will not dare talk to your parents or your husband or your wives that way. And imagine your kids talking to you like that. Imagine your kids come up to you and says, yo, Dad, I demand $20 right now because I live by grace in your house. Right? Do you like that if they do that to you? So what makes us think that he's going to be pleased when we do the same thing? Can you imagine Yeshua sitting at the right hand of the Father? And then all of a sudden, he is there, and you come up with an abrasive attitude, demanding and decreeing. I could only see my Messiah saying, Father, please don't kill him now. And he's going to have to stand in between you and the Father. And I'm pretty sure he'll say, remember the promise that you made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Remember that I took that shame so that this crazy person will be able to come in your kingdom? Can you imagine? You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. I mean, Messiah constantly going like, oh, Lord have mercy, please don't do it. Don't do it. But what if we learn how to approach the King? And when we come before him, we will come to him, my Father, my King, blessed are you, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, for you are so good, so gracious, too uplifting are you. For through our generations you keep your word, your promises, and your oath. Thank you for sending Messiah. Thank you for renewing our hopes. Thank you for restoring us. Thank you for everlasting life. Thank you for an inheritance. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you see Messiah sitting at the right hand of the Father? Say, my Father, my King. There comes your servant, that I am well pleased. Please incline your ear for your name's sake to his request or her request. Now he becomes a patron. He becomes a benefactor. He says, please incline. Please hear. Please listen. Just like Daniel prayed. You know, when you please hear, please forgive, please do, please that, for your name's sake, for your right hand's sake, for your righteousness' sake, because you're good and you're so kind. Yeah. Don't you think he deserves it? We're learning all those principles, right? Amen. All right. Let's continue. The riposte and response to the challenge must be beheld in integrity of truth and action. So, the integrity of honor by means of an oath. Julian Pitts Rivers is really the pioneer in this kind of research. All right? It says, hence the importance of an oath in relation to honor. It commits the honor of the swearer, just as crossed fingers liberated and aims to eliminate the ambiguity to his true intentions. It says, by invoking his God and bones of saints, his loyalty to his sovereign, the health of his mother, when people swear. Right? Yeah, that's right. Can you swear in the name of the Lord? Yeah, you can. You can swear an oath in the name of the Lord. The Bible tells you. But did you know that it's actually from a judicial perspective? That means that you go to a court of law and you swear in the name of Yahweh. And by the way, if you make an oath in the name of the Lord, you better follow through on it. Yes. Because if you do not do that, then his name will be shamed. Yes. An example, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's an example of a king of Israel who made a covenant with the king of Babylon. And then the king of Israel decided to turn around and make a covenant with the king of Israel, of Egypt. And because of that, the Lord says, and because of this, I'm going to send you to Egypt, to Babylon now. Because why? He made an oath of loyalty to Babylon, and then he turned around and broke it by coming in a covenant with somebody else. That's treason. That is shaming the oath, taking the name of their God to shame. How many of you have accepted Yeshua and you made an oath? Confession. Raise your hand. That's it. Do we all confess Yeshua with our mouth? You made an oath of loyalty. So that's why I submit to you that if you go worship on the things that are not ordained in the Bible, if you go worship on the wrong times that are not called by the Lord, then you took an oath of loyalty to your master and you believe that God raised him from the dead. But then you're not following through on your oath by not doing what God called you to do. Did that make sense? No? Yes?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yes.
So if you make an oath of loyalty, let's use marriage as an example. You have the betrothal process. Give your ring as betrothal. You set aside for that person, he set aside for you. If that person in the betrothal process goes running around sleeping with all kinds of women, do you think he's going to be faithful to you when he marries you? He can't even be committed when you haven't followed through in the whole thing. What is the number one thing women tell men when they commit adultery? It says, but you made oath, you made vows. Vows are important. And you do the vows in marriage in the name of the God who put you together, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's chaos in marriages when there's adultery. Because the camp has got to divide. There's chaos. You broke vows. There's no longer trust. So let me ask you a question. If we disobey the covenant that we made with that God made with Israel, what makes you think it's any different? That's why the Bible uses this, the life of a marriage, to highlight the relationship between you and the God of creation. So Israel disobeyed the covenant. There was chaos. He says, I turn my face from you, walk away. Now if you don't change your ways, then I'm not coming back to you. And then he does what? Throws them outside the land. What happens when somebody commits adultery? They don't want to talk to each other. They don't even want to see each other. It's argument, and then somebody has to leave the house. It's the same pattern. The same thing. Somebody loses honor. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Where was I? Somewhere in the middle. He activates an implicit curse against himself and in the eventuality of his failure to implement his oath, or at least he assures the public opinion is entitled to judge him dishonored. Moreover, he cannot attain the honor of the person to whom he is bound by oath by deceiving him. There was a brother here last night who was a Christian who was born in Saudi Arabia, and he was very, very nice. He told me that in his country, when someone he said, when I do the salt and the bread last night, he goes, do you know, Rico, that in Saudi Arabia, like when you can't talk bad about somebody because you took bread and salt together? Covenantal meal. So here you come into an oath, you come into a covenant. If you don't follow through on that oath, then you're not honoring the one that you came in covenant with. You see? Now that we see the severity of importance of swearing an oath, especially when Yahweh backs his by action, all through history, how much more should we have bound ourselves by oath to Yeshua when involving Romans 11? Now listen, but we already read it, right? It says, the word is near you and in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of belief which we are proclaiming, that if, read it with me, that if confess with your mouth the Master Yeshua and believe in your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. For with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and one confesses with the mouth, so it is saved. Because the scripture says, whoever puts his trust in him shall not be put to shame. So therefore your oath, in your loyalty to that oath, puts you in a position of blessing. Obedient to the commandment allows you to, through your actions, you work righteousness and justice, thus bringing honor to him because you receive a gift. Now, therefore, the blessing comes because of obedience. And now, when you tell someone your lifestyle, now say, I want to follow the God you follow. How many of you have told you at one point or another, I want what you got? How many of you? Raise your hand real quick. Think about what you did that caused that person to say that. If you go back and you think about it, either you extended righteousness at a particular need, or they saw the respect of your family towards you, or they saw the respect you have towards God. And they say, you know what, I want what you got. I don't have that. How can I get it? That's the gospel, right? So there's two categories in which honor and shame is bestowed. Ascribe honor or ascribe shame. We have the example of the sons of Eli. The sons of Eli, their lifestyle, their names reflected the shame. I mean, Eli could care less about putting discipline on their children. He would allow them. He's the high priest. That's why the Father raised up Samuel, who brought honor to the name of the Lord. Are we bringing honor to the name of Yahweh? Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, learning all the stuff that we learned in the last 2 days, are we truly bringing honor to our Messiah? Are we bringing honor to his Father the way we're supposed to? Are we taking care of the homeless, the widows, and the strangers? Or are we judging one another and cutting fellowship? And it's all a competition, a challenge and a riposte about theology. It's a challenge and a riposte. No, the name is this. No, the name is that. No, the name is this. Well, you're wrong. The name is this, the name is that. Well, this is this and that. There are certain things that I draw the line. My Messiah, I draw the line. You reject Yeshua, you're no longer my friend. I'm sorry. You just rejected my Messiah. I gain honor because what he did for me. So you reject Messiah and you want me to be buddies with you? Now, the Orthodox, the Jewish people who don't know Yeshua, that's a different story. History has limited their their vision about what the Messiah is all about. People know this who really study. I mean, they can see him right there. They won't recognize him. Just like the story of Joseph. But somebody who understood about the Torah, understands about Messiah, and then they go slandering Yeshua all over the place, and they're believers? Sorry, I want nothing to do with you. I don't hate you. But you committed treason. Doesn't Paul say not to eat with them? That's treason. They broke the oath. I don't want anything bad against you. I'm not even going to judge you. God will do with you what he wants to do. But you cannot pretend to be my friend because you slander my Messiah. Thus, you slander the Father who sent them. Talk about going to a different level without judging him. Is that the path you choose to go? Yes, good luck. I'm not going that way. And you move forward. Making sense? Yeah. You are honorable people, ladies and gentlemen. You are now part of the kingdom. You have been given an inheritance. Now you have acquired honor. You've been adopted into the kingdom. Please come with submissiveness of heart. Please come with willingness to obey. Please come for the purpose of honoring, exalting, and praising the King. Please, I beg of you, put my King, the Father, where he deserves to be put. With the honor and the exaltation. And put Yeshua where he belongs. As the right hand of the Father who was sent by the Father so that you and I can have this access. I cannot believe that I'm in Australia and I have to have a captive audience. That someone is actually be willing to listen after all the stuff that I did in my past. Seriously. I rejected the gospel to seek the will of the world and the money. I rejected my King because I did not know in the church. I was desperately seeking and asking questions to pastors, and they would reject me because I was only a 14, 15-year-old. They wouldn't teach me. I remember one time I dared to ask a question about circumcision. And you know what the guy told me? You don't know, just sit over there. You'll learn someday. And you know what really got me sick of that church? This particular one. I'm talking about that one. I'll tell you the story and I'll finish with this. Talk about injustice. There's a young man who was one of the youth. He got a girl pregnant. But he married her. He took care, and I'm not condoning it, but he took care of the responsibility. He married her. The pastor's wife started counting the month. He goes, oh, that's 7 months. They shamed that young man. You know, discipline, they do that in the Pentecostal churches. They isolated this guy. Nobody will talk to him. And I remember talking to him one time. How dare you do that? So the guy, okay, he made a mistake, but he got married. He got a job. He's taking care of responsibility. He repented. He's doing what a man's supposed to do, take responsibility. He moved forward. What did the congregation do? Isolated him, rejected him for 6 months because he needs discipline. The guy was so bitter, he left the church. He lost his job, ended up in jail, committed suicide. The blood of that guy is on that pastor's hand. And that's what provoked me to leave. I was never upset at God. I just didn't I didn't want to go back to that system. Because if that's the way they treat their own, I'd rather be miserable in the world than be miserable in the church. That was my attitude. That's how immature I was. And I ran away for 12 years. My father, my dad, wow. My father prayed for me for 12 years. While I was running around in the entertainment business and baseball and all that stuff, my father faithfully prayed for me. This man right here. I just got this picture I haven't seen in, 20 years. Haven't seen this picture. No, actually, it's, almost 21 years. This man was praying for me all along. And I remember that when I came back to the gospel, I came back destroyed, lost everything. I'm sitting there in the living room. My father could care less in the condition that I came back. He never knew what I used to do. It was like the prodigal son. I remember this man will wait for me when I would come home. Even though I was in sin, I was running around, I was doing all kinds of stuff. My father, when I told him, Dad, I'm coming home, this older man would sit out there with white hair. He would wait for me in the balcony. And the moment that I come in and he sees me, oh, my son is home. My son is home. Mi hijo llegó, mi hijo llegó. He would come over, give me big old hugs. He would celebrate me. He didn't know what I was doing, you see? He could care less. He could say, I'm praying for you, you know. He would try to talk to me about the word, but I was so immersed in the word that I could care less, right? And one day, I'm walking by the TV and I saw this particular evangelist and he goes, Rico, but just please sit and watch, watch this. He was always trying to get me. And I stood, I think I prophesied. I looked at the TV and I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, when I come back, that's not what I'm going to be. But I caught myself. I said, when I come back. He goes, you coming back? Michael, I remember exactly the place where I was when I finally decided this is not for me. I know the hour, I know the day, and I know where I was in Tampa, Florida. No need to know where I was. And I looked at everything and I told my buddy, I got to go. I'm going home. I said, I'm going home. I called my father from the parking lot. And I said, Dad, I'm tired. I'm coming home. He knew I wasn't saying I'm going to Puerto Rico. He knew what I meant. I've never seen a man so rejoiceful in my life. On the other side of the phone, this man is crying and praising and worshiping and uplifting because he cried out to God and the Lord heard his voice. And I remember sitting at the living room one time, and I'm coming back, and I'm trying to start from scratch, and I'm like really, oh man, you don't even want to know. And I'm sitting there, and then my father, I told him, I said, Dad, thank you for praying for me all those years. And he goes, oh, I can finally go to sleep. I said, well, what do you mean? My mom says, he will wake up at 3 a.m. crying out for you. And I remember at least 3 or 4 occasions that I was about to do something I shouldn't have done. And I asked him, I said, Dad, let me ask you a question. How many times did that happen? He goes, I don't know why, but there were like 3 or 4 times that the Lord woke me up from sound sleep and I began to cry out for you. Now let me ask you a question. This man died in May of 2005. My ministry began in Sukkot of 2005. He never got to see what you saw. But yet he believed in the promise of restoration. He believed in the honor of a God. He didn't know a lot about Torah. Well, I remember when I told him about the Sabbath, he goes, so what do I do now? I don't know what to do. It's a long day. And I said, just do what you're doing, Dad. The last words before he died, you know what he says? I want to leave with the Spirit of the living God. Amen. He was the most amazing hero in my life. He was a man of integrity, a man of honor. And he prayed for me, and he never knew what I did. He still honored me as his son, with all the baggage I had. If that is true, my Heavenly Father knew exactly what I did, and still gave me honor. So that now I come to his kingdom and I shame somebody? Will you please stand? Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I want to thank you so much for the faithfulness of my father, my literal father on the earth. Even though he's not here today because he's resting into the day of resurrection, which I know I will see him there. I want to honor you, I want to praise you, I want to uplift you, I want to exalt you for his faithfulness. Yes. interceding on my behalf and for you, my King, having mercy on me, having mercy on every single person in this place. That you never throw our past in our faces, that you consider us clean in your sight. My Father, you give us a new name, you give us a new identity, you give us your heart, you give us your Torah. Are we the servants that you deserve, my King? Are we standing up for your honor and your righteousness the way you called us to be? Truly, we come to you, for you are our only hope and our salvation. And I just want to take the time to say thank you for your Torah. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for keeping your word. Thank you for upholding your oath. Thank you for extending honor. Thank you for giving us righteousness. Thank you for giving us justice. Thank you for your equity. And thank you for our Messiah, your Son, Yeshua, who was willing to do all of this just to honor you. And because of that, you have extended that honor to us. Amen. Thank you so much.